Loving, living God, be among us now. Show us your ways, guide our steps. Live in us, that we may be people of steadfast hope and powerful giving. Help us hear your words, challenging us to give you all the things that are yours. Help us remember that all we are and all we have are gifts from you. Gifts to be shared in service and love. Holy One among us, help us be a holy people who receive your word with joy and live your message with love. Amen.
I wait quietly before God, for my victory comes from Him. He alone is my rock and my salvation, my fortress where I will never be shaken. So many enemies against one man, all of them trying to kill me. To them I'm just a broken down wall or a tottering fence. They plan to topple me from my high position. They delight in telling lies about me. They praise me to my face, but curse me in their hearts. Let all that I am wait quietly before God, for my hope is in Him. He alone is my rock and my salvation, my fortress where I will not be shaken. My victory and honour come from God alone. He is my refuge, a rock where no enemy can reach me. O my people, trust in Him at all times. Pour out your heart to Him, for God is our refuge.
Hi, a few thoughts from me on the pandemic and some perspectives around faith. For me, in general, the pandemic is going, I guess, the same as it is for everyone else. Been lucky enough to keep my job and immerse myself in work. The company is bigger, busier, a little more stressful at times, perhaps. But I'm also dropping down to 4 days a week on the admission that one of these days I'm going to need to retire, and trying to work out what that looks like for me. One of the few benefits of lockdown, I suppose, is that it's broken a lot of habits. So habits, be they, I don't know, how we work, how we spend our spare time, what we do about church meetings and all that kind of thing. So it's been an opportunity just to reset and to reboot and to learn something about ourselves, perhaps, and our response to those habits. And one of the things I learned about myself is that I like a challenge, a deadline, or a target of some sort. Some of them stupidly ambitious, like cycling over mountains, or recently in Lent this year, I undertook a 40-day challenge to not to give something up, but to do something. I decided I wanted to ride my bike or run for a meaningful amount every day for 40 days, which I did. Looking back, I guess partly that was because maybe I have a big birthday next year and I want to deny the passing of time. But also, when I'm out, I like to consume some podcasts, listen to stuff, listen to what people are thinking, listen to some music. So I was able to do that for 40 days in a row, which was quite good. And specifically, I was asked to think, just for this thing today, about my thoughts on faith and the pandemic. And one of the podcasts I listened to during my 40 days of running and cycling was one from Brian McLaren and Richard Rohr, who I think a number of us have listened to and quoted from a number of times before. And in this particular podcast, they really spoke just in passing briefly about a quote from a book by a guy called Gregory Boyd, who I did some research. He wrote a book called Benefit of the Doubt. And the question, or the quote rather, that that was in this podcast was about putting the idol of certainty to death. The idol of certainty being this, if you like, this dogmatic approach or view of what faith is, that faith is a sort of a rigid, dogmatic adherence to a set of beliefs, if you like, almost a badge of honour. But life isn't like that. People have doubts. I have doubts. I guess everyone has doubts from time to time. And the book was saying really that by making faith such a certainty and making the certainty behind it such a desirable thing, that we are putting the bar too high. We're overthinking it. We're making it too difficult for people to understand what it is just to live day to day with God. And it talks instead about replacing this certainty with a commitment to finding God day to day in the midst of your doubts, which really spoke to me, because that's how I am. I guess it's probably how many of us are, that not every day you're feeling on top form, but you do want to go through your day in sort of this dialogue with God, and really just being in tune with Him as much as you can, and to be able to go through your day-to-day business, and have Him alongside you, without knowing necessarily that you're absolutely right about everything all the time. So how does that affect my outlook? Well, being me, and this person perhaps who likes a bit of a challenge every now and then, and also perhaps meeting things in those challenges, or trying to meet things in those challenges which are beyond me, it's taught me, I guess, that I just need to have faith that God has created me to be a certain kind of person with certain skills, certain abilities and instincts, and sometimes the answer is in my head or in my gut about something, and it isn't always a prayerful, moment. It's something that is just who He made me to be. So that's been quite a releasing thought, I guess, for me. Secondly, not to be stressed out about my work. There's no need to be stressed out about work. And then, what does it mean in other areas of life? What does it mean in church, for example, to be not certain about how to construct what we do in church in the future? And for me, this pandemic has been an opportunity just to think, well, what matters to me about church? What matters to me about fellowship and other such religious words? And what's really mattered to me in this time has been the ongoing kind of support of my growth group that I'm in, and that's been fantastic just to be a part of and enjoy. And also, coming out of this, well, how much of what we used to do I want to do anymore? So that's been quite interesting. And in that podcast, Richard Raw is quite refreshingly frank about what he, as a Franciscan priest, wants to do, and he's quite happy, I think, not to do any of the old stuff anymore. But anyway, more of that, I guess, in the future. But that's where I am on faith. It's about not considering it as a certainty, but to put the idol of certainty to death and to embrace living in the doubt.
Faith is a journey. Some milestones on Abraham's journey. The first milestone was at Haran, nearly 4,000 years ago, where Abraham settled and got stuck, as Peter explained last Sunday. God then called him, now aged 75, to move on to Canaan, the land that God promised him, and he camped near a place called Bethel. There he pitched his tent, built an altar, and worshipped God. After a while there arose a serious famine in the land, and Abraham decided to move to Egypt, where there was plenty of food. Fast forward the terrible mistake that he made there. When Pharaoh discovered it, he threw him out of the country. Abraham wended his way back to Bethel and worshipped God there again. That word again could infer that somewhere along the line in Egypt, Abraham had stopped worshipping God, but now he had restarted. As time went by, both Lot's and Abraham's flocks and herds multiplied. They needed to part, to stretch out. Unselfishly, Abraham said to Lot, "You choose the way you'd like to go, and I will choose the other." Lot looked to the Jordan Valley, nice, green, fertile. He chose that way, and Abraham remained in the hill country. With the people he had collected on his journey, Abraham's community now numbered over 300 men, before counting the women and children. Plenty of men, but no son.
When Abraham was 99 years old, the Lord appeared to him and said, "I am El Shaddai, God Almighty. Serve me faithfully and live a blameless life. I will make a covenant with you, by which I will guarantee to you countless descendants." At this, Abraham fell face down on the ground. Then God said to him, "This is my covenant with you. I will make you the father of a multitude of nations. What's more, I'm changing your name. It will no longer be Abraham. Instead, you will be called Abraham, for you will be the father of many nations. I will make you extremely fruitful. Your descendants will become many nations, and kings will be among them. I will confirm my covenant with you and your descendants after you, from generation to generation. This is the everlasting covenant. I will always be your God and the God of your descendants after you. And I will give the entire land of Canaan, where you now live as a foreigner, to you and your descendants. It will be their possession forever, and I will be their God.
Laura read from Psalm 62. You know, the Psalms are so rich in their content, aren't they? There is just about every emotion in the Psalms, and they give us confidence that we can pray using all of our emotions as well. Let all that I am wait quietly before God, for my hope is in him. What a line. My hope is in him. I wonder whether it's a description. All that I am is going to wait quietly because I have hope in him? Or is it an aspiration? He hasn't quite got there yet. Oh, that all that I am might be quiet before him, and that I might learn to put my hope in him. Is it a description or is it aspiration? I guess it's a bit of both. But I wonder this morning, are you waiting quietly? Are you waiting quietly for those things for which you have prayed, where God hasn't yet delivered? Can you wait quietly in faith, or do you find it hard to be patient, waiting for God to act, waiting for God to answer prayer for a loved one in distress, or for a relationship that just won't resolve, or for a deeper personal prayer life that you so long for, or the opportunity to share with a friend your faith in Jesus? Waiting is hard. Perhaps it's the hardest thing. And waiting patiently, well, that's even harder. And with modern life as it is, we're used to fast speed everything, fast speed internet, streaming this to you right now. We're used to clicking things and then having them delivered the next day. Do you remember when things were delivered within 28 days? Maybe modern life makes waiting harder than ever for us. So when we think about those longings, those struggles, those unresolved situations and relationships, and the yearning for something more from our lives, well, it's easy to give up. You know, before the promise of God, you will be the father of many nations, Abram and Sarah's dream was not to be the mother and father of many nations, or even a nation, just one child. That's all they hoped for. They hoped and they prayed and they longed for one. Maybe some days they prayed in hope, like Psalm 62. Other days maybe it was a lament. Where are you, God? And now with Sarah 90 and Abram pushing 100, well, they must have given up hope. But when St. Paul talks about Abraham and Sarah, when he says that's the Romans in Romans chapter 4, he doesn't think they have given up, although he speaks rather rudely about them. Abraham's faith did not weaken, even though at about 100 years of age, he figured his body was as good as dead, and so was Sarah's womb. I can tell you that my faith would have weakened. And there will be prayers and dreams and hopes that maybe you have had to painfully abandon. What do we do with them? In the story of Abram and Sarah, we saw last week in Genesis 12 that God breaks in. Go and bless. Leave your settled place and go and bless. And then in Genesis 17 that we just had Liz read for us, the promises and commands are coming thick and fast. The agreement, the testament, the new covenant develops. I am El Shaddai, God Almighty. Serve me faithfully and live a blameless life. I will make a covenant with you by which I guarantee to give you countless generations. Well, that's a bold claim. And have you ever wondered how Abram knew that? How did God speak to him? Was it like a Charlton Heston film with the clouds parting and the ray of light shining on him? Or maybe just a deep sense of knowing inside? We don't know, but Abram did. He knew. Serve me faithfully and lead a blameless life. I will make a covenant with you. Though you are as good as dead, in Paul's words, and Sarah's womb is as good as dead, you will be fruitful. You are not too old. You're not too far gone. And I would change your name even to remind you that I am yours and you are mine. You will be my people and I will be your God. That's the heart of our self-giving God, that we be God's and God be ours. A deep relationship that God longs to have with us. Not like a genie lamp that we can just pray and rub the lamp and get 3 wishes. Not a warrior who we can call down and smite our enemies and all those people who don't think the way we think. But a Father, a Son, a Holy Spirit who invites us into relationship, into covenant. Now, lots of ink has been spent on the question as to whether this covenant between God and Abraham, and by extension between God and us, is conditional or unconditional. And you might want to think about that a bit later. But today I want us to think just for a few moments about Abram's response. In fact, his response all the way through in this story. You see, the New Testament credits him as a man of faith. In Romans 4, Paul singles him out as an example of a man who just kept hoping. He just kept believing. But then James uses Abraham as an example of someone whose faith or belief in God and in God's purposes and plans and his word, he puts his faith into action. And then Hebrews kind of referees between the two and says it was by faith that Abraham obeyed God and left to go to another land. So we can see here that this great, incredible relationship between God and his plans and us and our obedience. Genesis 12 is another good example. God says to Abram, go and bless. And Abraham could have said, I respectfully decline. But he doesn't. He goes. In Genesis 17, I will make you a father of a whole multitude. Again, he could have said, no thanks. How would he have done that? Well, perhaps he'd have stepped in a different tent to his wife. No sex, no descendants. So the plans and purposes of God are invitations of the loving God who moves towards Abraham, asking to trust God and to put that trust into practice, into obedience. So we can't talk about faith without talking about action. The purposes of God are caught up with our obedience to make something happen, to make something move, to speak, and in Abram's case, sleep with his wife. Well, that's a different tale, and we'll come to that next week because it gets complicated. Now, that's not to say that God won't find a way to do his thing, because he is El Shaddai. He is the Lord God Almighty. And there are times when the lack of human cooperation doesn't thwart God's plans. But in his love towards his creation, he invites us to be the agent of blessing. He takes into himself our desire to be obedient and to take steps of obedience. One Old Testament scholar based at Durham University, Moberly, writes this. He says, Abram's obedience has been incorporated into the divine promise. I love that. That God's overarching plan and his purposes for all of creation require Abram saying, okay then, I'm in. So you might want to think about what might have happened if it said no. Or maybe later in the Bible where Samuel had been told not to listen to the voice calling him, just go back to sleep. Or when the older Samuel senses David, the shepherd boy, would be God's chosen, anointed king, and David, no, I'd rather go back to my sheep if that's okay. Or if Jeremiah had said, here I am, but I don't fancy it. Or what happens if Mary had said, or the disciples had said, or Paul had said, I'm not going to follow. And then think what did happen when Moses said, here I am, send somebody else. Or when Jonah said, I don't want to go to Nineveh. There is hand in glove this relationship between our faith and our obedience. Faith isn't believing, it's doing because you're believing, trusting with action. Do you remember the 1989 film, The Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, where Harrison Ford gets this chasm and there's no clear way to cross, but the promise is as you step out the path will appear, and he looks down at certain death, and if you were told step off the cliff and the path will open up, it'll be just fine. Have faith but put it into action. And that's what Harrison Ford does. Obedience responding to a promise. And that's what Abraham does too. You will be the father of a great nation. A promise really hard to believe when you're pushing 100. And even though that sounds impossible, it's possible because you need to do your part. And we'll come to that next week when he tries to force God's hands to rush God's promises with devastating results. But for us, can we see that the promises that God has given us, we can receive with faith? Faith that doesn't just believe, but act on that belief. And that somehow, in the great love of God, our saying yes to those promises, our action actually gets incorporated into the plans of God. That if I want to develop my prayer life, more than just a wish, I might carve out time to do that. If I want a deeper relationship with my children or with my partner or with my neighbours, not just to trust that God will sort it out, but to trust that that yearning comes from God, and that as I am obedient, simple steps of obedience, I'll see the fulfillment of God's plans in my life. And maybe you're having a hard time believing those promises. Maybe your experience has taught you that it's best to give up on that relationship, or that marriage, or those children, or that longing or yearning for a different way of living or healing. Yet the yearning's still there. And in the waiting, painful as it is, the longing doesn't go away. It's not that God isn't there in those moments. Perhaps he's most there. Because the Bible is full of stories of unlikely people who dared to believe that their dreams are there in their hearts because they're placed by God. And maybe we need to be ready to take simple steps of obedience. And maybe you're doubtful, but that's okay, because doubting is allowed, even encouraged. And maybe in spite of the waiting and the longing, in spite of the hoping and the yearning, those dreams will never come to fruition. And what you thought was a promise is left unfulfilled. And you might well feel robbed. But again, God comes to us in love, caring and weeping for our disappointments and losses, grieving alongside us and with us and for us in our pain, but always present, that we are never abandoned, never alone, and always loved, and invited once again to trust God, who sees the end from the beginning, the whole picture, not just the bits that we see or think we see, but invites us to step out because he loves us. Simple steps of obedience. Those steps become incorporated into the plans and purposes of our faithful Father. So, as I close take a moment to scan your life. Promises you've sensed God has made to you, longings in your heart, maybe for a friend or family member, or in your own life where you're still wanting to see God's purposes fulfilled. Or maybe where you've just given up, where you sense God has been silent. Tell him right now. And where God is nudging you to take steps of obedience, resolve to do that today. Lord, today I believe.
Lord, you have always given bread for the coming day, and though I am poor, today I believe. Lord, you have always given strength for the coming day, and though I am weak, today I believe. Lord, you have always given peace for the coming day, and though of anxious heart, today I believe. Lord, you have always kept me safe in trials, and now, tried as I am, today I believe. Lord, you have always marked the road for the coming day, and though it may be hidden, today I believe. Lord, you have always lightened this darkness of mine, and though the night is here, today I believe. Lord, you have always spoken when time was ripe, and though you be silent now, today I believe.
El Shaddai, God Almighty, covenant-keeping God whose promise is strong and true. Align our hearts with your heart. Remind us that we are made in your image, not the image of this world, dependent on you and upon the future and the hope that you promised for us. God, remind us today of your goodness and faithfulness as we focus on you, and as you invite us again to place our confidence in you rather than in ourselves. We thank you that you have plans for our lives and that we have a future because of your faithfulness. We pray you will bless those who feel like giving up, whether weighed down by the cares of the world or sickness. Bless the Queen and the royal family following the loss of Prince Philip. Bless those with leadership responsibilities, leaders of this country, leaders of churches, and particularly in our own church. Bless all those who are hurt or grieving in our communities. Let us take a moment in our hearts or out loud to bring before God any personal situation on our heart in which we long to see God's love and light. Help us, God, in darkness and light, in trouble and in joy, to trust in your love. When you say a word,
may we hear you, Lord.
When you touch our hearts,
may we feel you, Lord.
When you lead the way,
may we follow you, Lord.
When you inspire us,
may we respond to you, Lord.
May all our lives be lived in response to your calling, Lord Jesus. God's promises endure from generation to generation. May the God of Abraham and Sarah, the God who sent Jesus to redeem us, the God whose covenant is eternal, bless us and make us fruitful. We thank you, Lord, that even when we are not physically together, we can still gather together in prayer. Let's join together now as Jesus taught us in saying the Lord's Prayer. Our Father in heaven, Hallowed be your name. Your kingdom come, your will be done, on earth as in heaven. Give us today our daily bread. Forgive us our sins, as we forgive those who sin against us. Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For the kingdom, the power, and the glory are yours, now and forever. Amen.
Let's share the grace together. May the grace of our Lord Jesus Christ and the love of God and the fellowship of the Holy Spirit be with us all evermore. Amen.